Uh, Welcome to today's session on teaching primary school maths with the Sharp EL-W535SA and the S25. We're going to look at both calculators and how they apply to primary school, just to give you an idea of the difference in functions, as well as some fun things to do with it. Okay, so this is the plan for today. I'm not going to talk about all of them now because we're going to cover them in 2 minutes, but just so you have an idea of what the plan is. So last night's session took about an hour. I'm pretty sure ours will be shorter. But yeah, if you have any questions, just chuck them in. So the 535 is recommended by the Department of Education. It's non-graphical and non-programmable, which means it's allowed in your final matric exam. So it's really nice if you start your students off in grade 7 that they grow up with this calculator all the way through high school as well. Now you can download the simulator for the 535 from this link here. So what I will do is at the end in the chat, hopefully you will be able to find it. Yesterday there was a glitch and no one could find the PDF version of this. I will share it in the chat with you, okay? But if you want it, you can also just email me and say, Sal, please can I have the presentation? And then you'll be able to click on all of these links to go to any of the places that I'm talking about now. If you like drawing graphs, GeoGebra is really nice. It's particularly nice for high school, but you might find some application in grade 7 as well. Maths at Sharp has got all of the grade 8 to 12 worksheets. So if you're doing extra maths, or if you are a high school teacher who's just decided to join us this morning, awesome. So Maths at Sharp has got grade 8 to 12 maths, math literacy, some technical maths, and we are working, well, I'm hoping to have some AP maths up towards the end of the term as well. eClassroom is really nice, but unfortunately it now has a subscription fee. So the worksheets are fantastic and really worth the subscription fee. So just as a note. But for primary school, I particularly love worksheetworks.com, and I'll show you briefly how it works at the end of the session as well, just so you can have an idea. Really, really nice for the littlies. I mean, someone was asking last night whether there were grade 1 and 2 worksheets, and you can definitely find grade 1 and 2 maths worksheets on worksheetworks.com. Then the mathsjourney.com has got grade 7 to 9 worksheets. This is my personal blog. I just felt like there was such a gap for grade 7 and 6 maths worksheets, South African core maths worksheets. So I've created some worksheets there that you can download. And then, of course, our YouTube channel, if you would like to watch any of the other videos as well. Okay. Then calculator basics, our on button is here. Then we've got our second function button, and that just activates any of our orange keys, like our mixed number fraction, prime factorization, highest common factor, lowest common multiple functions. Alpha is for memory keys, which we won't really use today, so don't worry about it. Mode allows you to access the 4 different modes on the 535. BS is not what your kids write when they don't know the answer. It's actually the backspace button. Then change allows you to change between mixed, improper, and decimal answers. And then, of course, equals will help you find the answer to whatever you've tapped into your calculator. Okay. So you've got 4 different modes. We're going to spend a lot of time in normal mode and in table mode and some drill, but because grade 7 we do data handling, where we deal with tally tables and with drawing histograms and pie charts, etc. We don't really use the stat mode on the calculator. Then the other calculator is the S25. So it's got a lot less functionality, but it does have a mental maths practice feature. And I'll walk you through that in a little bit. It is a 10-digit calculator, and we actually have a really nice fun worksheet based on calculator skills and using your calculator, where you solve sums and it turns into words, and then you've got to put it into a crossword puzzle. So I'll share that with you at the end of the workshop as well. So some things to note on the S25: you've got a solar panel, So it means your calculator should last longer battery-wise. Just make sure that it does spend some time in the sun occasionally and doesn't live in a dark bag the entire time. Otherwise, the solar panel will not be of any use to you. Then our drill mode, similar to our W535, is these three buttons, these white buttons over here. You've got Q, plus, minus, times, divide, and times table. And I'll go through all of those in a little bit. Now your CA button is your clear all, so it will clear everything that you've done, whereas your CCE is, oops, I made a mistake and I need to clear one little thing. Then you've got a pi button, you've got an integer button, neither of which we're going to cover today. You've got a percentage button and an equals button as well. So let's talk through your shortcut for class marks. Right, so I'm going to use the 535. Unfortunately, we don't have a simulator for the S25. But I did take videos, very poor videos, so that you can actually see what's going on with the calculator as well. So let's talk the shortcut for class marks. So we're going to press our fraction button. That's just the A/B button. Then what you do is at the top, you type in whatever you want to convert your marks to a total out of. So if we wanted to convert to percentages, our total would be 100. If we have CAS, or I don't actually know what it's called anymore. If we had CAS and we wanted to convert our marks into something out of 20, then you would put that at the top. So I'm going to do a percentage out of 100, just to give you a nice idea. And then at the bottom, you put the total that your test is out of. So let's say our total is out of 40. Okay, then you press your right arrow key to get out of your fraction. You say times, and you type in your first student's mark. So the first student gets 32 out of 40. So we say equals, and they get 80%. Now the next student got 21 out of 40. So all you do is don't press anything else. Just type in 21 and press equals. And you'll see that your ratio, which was the 100 over 40, is now remembered by the calculator, and it will then give you your percentage. And it will keep remembering that ratio as long as you keep typing in numbers. Okay, so you can do your entire class list, oopsie, like that. And you are done in 5 minutes. Your coffee is still hot. Your family still recognizes you. So it's lovely. Sorry, the sarcasm. But yeah, so it's a really nice way to do your shortcut for class marks, especially if you don't like using Excel conversions. So this is a nice way to do it. The steps on the S25 are similar. However, instead of obviously using a fraction, we use a divide key. And after you do the division, you need to press your equals button first. Then you multiply by a first mark and press equals. And then you can just continue to do mark equals until you are done. So I did this video and I realized now I should have changed it, but I did it incorrectly. So, but you can see sort of the steps there. Okay, so then press equals, and then you would say times and your first student's mark. And that's what the CCE button is for, and I pressed the CA button instead. But anyway, so that's the difference between the two of them. Okay, so mental maths. We all know mental maths is a critical thing for math students, and there is a link between how well math students do in mental maths in primary school with how well they do in their final matric exams. So that's quite something. So the better they do in mental maths in primary school, and the better the grasp they have of these fundamental building blocks, because multiplication is finding factors. And if we're able to find factor pairs quickly and do division quickly, we can answer lots of things: fractions, factorizing, substituting into graphs quickly. All of those things are predictors from mental maths. So let me show you how our mental maths function works. So we're going to press, oh, sorry, I did not mean to press reset. But on the note of reset, on the back of your calculator is a reset button. So you would just need to use your pen to just touch the button on the inside. It's done like that so that you don't accidentally reset the calculator every time. And then it will just take it back to what the way that you get it when it comes in the box for you. Okay. You can also magically do reset if you don't have a pen with you by saying second function and alpha, and then you can see you have an option to reset, and then you can just clear everything. So now there's no memory of anything else you've done so far. Okay, so back to mental maths. So we're going to press mode and 3 for drill, like so. And then you've got 2 options, math and table. So let me start you off with table. And what table is it allows us to practice a particular times table. So when we use the S25, we only have the option of doing counting ends. In other words, a times table in serial order, counting in 4s or counting in 5s. So with the S25, you would type in the number you want to do or practice, and then you would just press equals. Whereas with the 535, you've got 2 options. You can either do it in serial order, which I want to show you now, or you can do it in random, where it mixes up the different multiplication up to 12. So you have 12 questions. So here you'll see that we're actually just counting in 5s every time. So we can say 5 equals 10 equals 15 equals 20 equals, and so on and so forth. Okay, and then if you type in the wrong answer, it's going to mark it wrong and repeat the question again. And it's very patient. It's going to keep asking you until you get it right. So obviously you don't want a student to repeat something 20 times, because then you know they're just messing around and playing. So what you can do is, after 3 tries, if they don't get it, they can leave the space blank and press equals, and then it will show them what the answer is. So that next time they see 5 times 5, they know that the answer is 25, and they can continue on. You'll see you don't get a mark for that question. You only get a mark for questions that are answered correctly. So I'm going to just skip through to the end here. And at the end, you'll see press enter, which is your equals button. And you can see I got 5 out of 12, or 42%. So the math function works very similarly in that you have questions that you need to answer. So whereas this one's got plus, minus, times, divide, and all 4 of them mixed together, and you have 25, 50, or 100 questions. So you can just choose, using your left and right arrow keys, what type of questions you want to do. So for grade 6 and 7, I would recommend all 4 of them. And then for the littlies, you can start with plus. So from grade 2 even, with your pluses, because it goes from 0 to 20 plus 0 to 20. Minus does the opposite. Times does 0 to 12 times 0 to 12. So that's grade 4 and upwards. Divide does the opposite of times. So you're looking at about the end of grade 4, beginning of grade 5, that they should be able to do those ones. And then once they're competent in those, you can then move on to doing next questions. And then, of course, I think I'm repeating myself, but just in case, 25, 50, or 100 questions. So depending on how long you want them to spend practicing their mental maths, or how long you need to set something else up in the classroom, you can get them to do so many questions. Okay. So again, the same concept. It's going to ask us a question. We need to type in the answer and press equals. We'll get a tick and a new question. If we type in the answer incorrectly, it marks it wrong and it repeats the question again. And again, very patient. We'll keep asking until you get it right. If you don't know the answer, you can leave it blank and press equals, and it will show you that same answer. And then at the end, I'm going to do very poorly in this one. Let me answer one more question just to feel better about myself. Okay, so we'll press equals, and you can see I got 2 out of 25 correct, or 8%. So you can go, and once the students are finished, just take down their marks and make sure that they've done the mental math. And you can see if whether or not they've actually answered the questions because of the mark allocation as well. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't remember what you've got wrong and what you've got incorrect. It will only give you the mark at the end, and then it resets itself. So it doesn't have enough memory space to do that. So if you do want to see what's going on with the mental maths, you would have to get them to write down the question, what their answer is, and whether they got a tick or a cross. So you can check that they're actually doing it correctly by checking the calculator mark at the end and making sure they're not actually cheating. But you know, that's a teacher thing. So with the S25, it works in a similar way in that instead of having to go to a particular mode, you would just press your Q button to start your question. So again, you still have 25, 50, or 100 questions, and you use your Q button to cycle through them. Then you have your plus, minus, times, divide button, and it has exactly the same parameters as the W535 as well. And you can do plus, minus, times, divide, or all 4 of them together. So here's a video just to show you. So there's your Q button. You can choose 25, 50, or 100 questions. You can select between plus, minus, times, divide, and all 4. When you've chosen, you can press equals, and you'll see the questions are completely random. So you'll never get the same set of questions. There's your little tick, and then you get a new question. So the tick is a little bit faster, and so is the cross, but it's nice because it's not really like, oh, you got it wrong, that's awful. It's just, oh, oops, you got it wrong, try again. And you'll see it's, again, very patient. It will keep asking until you get it right. If you're stuck and you don't know the answer, press the equals button, it will show you. Again, it is a bit faster than the W535, so they've got to be paying attention when they do something like this. And you'll see, I'm just scrolling through, but you can see the questions are completely different from the questions we just did right now. So it is completely random, which makes it awesome. And you can see which question you're on. So you can see exactly how fast they're going as well. It's always fun to have them race each other. Let me just finish this video. So there's your marks, 3 out of 25 or 12%. Okay, so I had a set of these S25s. I took a brief break from Sharp a couple of years ago. I went to manage a primary school maths center for about 6 months. And what I did is I took 10 of these with me to the maths center. So when the students were finished with their work, they were allowed to come and do the drill mode on the calculator. And if they got 100%, I had a suite in my drawer, whether it was Fizz Pop or Fizzer, whatever I found for that week. And they had one chance to get to 100%. And then what was happening is they didn't want to give the calculators back. They wanted to practice some more so that tomorrow they could get 100% and get another suite. And they were coming into the center. So we were based on the premises of school, but they were coming into the center even when it wasn't their extra maths days to play with the calculator. So it's really amazing how a simple rewards-based system was getting them to practice their mental maths so nicely. So it's definitely, I know with a class of 30 kids, rewards-based is a little bit difficult, but it is something to consider as well. Even if you have races and the first child to get to 100% wins a sticker, or and you have a star chart, it really does encourage them to practice their mental maths as well. So for finding multiples and factor pairs, this is specific to the 535 calculator. So let's start. We're going to use table mode. So we're going to press mode and to table. Okay. If we want, I'm going to start with a simple multiple. Let's do 8. Okay, so we want all the multiples of 8. So what we do is type in 8, and then we just press our RCL button twice to make an X. So basically we're saying 8 times X, which is a good introduction to our algebra as well. And then we can say equals, ignore function 2, and then just scroll down until we get to our table. We'll press equals until you get to your table. Now anything times 0 is 0, and we can see 1 times 8 is 8, 2 times 8 is 16, 3 times 8 is 24, 4 times 8, 5, and so on. And because your table is unlimited, you really can do multiples for a long time without running out of space. Now, what's really cool here is if you're doing long division. So say, for example, we have a long division sum. I'm going to try and remember what I used yesterday because it was quite a nice one. And we use 23. Now, what you can do is on the calculator, you type in 23. And oopsie, wrong one. You type in 23 and you press your RCL button twice to make your X. You can also say L for RCL, but I'm lazy, so I like the short version better. And press equals, 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 and there we go. So here's all our multiples. 1 times 23 is 23, 2 times, and so on. So with long division, what we can do is we're saying, okay, we're looking for 23 doesn't go into 6, but 23 can go into 65 how many times? So we scroll on our table until we reach a value higher than 65, which is 69. So we're going to use the value before it, which is 46. So in other words, 23 goes into 65 twice. So here we're just going to write a 2. Now 2 times 23 is 46. So we write down our 46, do our subtraction. Remember, you're doing daddy, mommy, sister, brother. Okay, so I'm actually just going to share the whole screen so that I can work. Oh man, it disappeared. Okay, hang on. Let me write it over here. So we've got 23, what was it? 6, 5, 7, 2. And then we've got, we said nothing. And then we had 2, and that was 46. And we're using our daddy divide, mommy multiply, brother bring down, daddy, mommy, sister, brother, sister subtract, brother bring down. Okay, so here's our multiply. Then we need to do sister subtract. So we borrow, and we're left with a 9 and a 1. And then we bring down the 7. Okay, so now we're looking for 197. So on our calculator, we're going to scroll for a value that's bigger than 197. So we can see that that's 207. So we're going to use the one before that, which is our 8, which is 184. So here we've got 8. Now we know 8 times 23 is 184. Then we do sister subtract. So that's 3 and 1 and a dot. And then we bring down the 2. So we've got 132. So again, we scroll through our table and look for something bigger than 132, which is 138. So we're going to use the one before it, which is 115, which is 5. So here we have 5. 5 times 23 is, as we said, 115. Sister subtract, bring down, borrow. 12 is 7. And that is 17. And 23 doesn't go into 17. So our remainder is 17. Please forgive me for my atrocious handwriting. So you can see that using the multiples is a really, really nice way for teaching long division. And I know all of the students struggle with long division. So it's a really nice way to do it with your students. There is another way to do long division and to check your answer. So what you can do is press home, which is in normal mode. Home will just take you to normal mode from whichever other mode you are in. And then we had, what is our value? 6572, right? And then instead of using the divide button, there's a special divide button on top of your storage key. You'll see the divide sign is highlighted in blue. And what it does is it gives us our quotient, which is what we got, as well as our remainder. So it's a really nice way to check whether or not our long division sum is correct. Cool. So let's go back to table mode and let's find factor pairs of numbers. So if we're looking for the factor pairs of 63, okay, we can press the fraction button this time. And now we are dividing 63 by x each time. So 1 goes into 63, 2 goes into 63, and so on and so forth. So again, we can just press our equals button so we get to the table. Don't worry about starting step, especially not for multiples and factors. Leave them as 0 and 1. It's easiest. Now, the first thing that we're going to see is that anything divided by 0 is undefined. And this is quite a critical thing that our students need to learn and make sure that they understand, because as soon as they get to grade 10, we stop calling it an undefined line and we start saying it's an asymptote. But if they don't understand that anything divided by 0 is undefined, what is an asymptote? Really, whatever you call it, it doesn't make sense. So that's why we need to make sure that they get this concept. So here are your factor pairs: 1 and 63, 2 and 31.5. So we know that 2 is not a factor because it has a decimal answer. 3 and 21, 4 is not a factor, 5 is not a factor, 6 is not a factor. Oh, I chose a poor example here. 7 and 9. 8 is not a factor. And you can see now the values have switched around. So we've got all of our factor pairs and we are all done. Okay. Any questions so far? Haven't checked. So awesome. What's really nice about factor pairs is you can do factor pairs of any size number. So whether you wanted to do factor pairs of 3,800, you could just type that into the calculator. And because your calculator is unlimited, it means you can go for as long as you like and you won't ever run out of space, but you can easily find all the factor pairs of such big numbers as well, you can see. So the other nice thing here is even though we started at 0, for grade 7s, when we start talking about integers, you can go back up into the negative side. So -1 times -3,800 will give me the positive 3,800 we started with. And you can see your whole table is like that. So there are some nice ways to teach or explain, what's the word, demonstrate integers as well. So the next thing that I want to show you is a shortcut for prime factors. Now, we know that we can do prime factors with the ladder method. And let's use 63 again. So 63, we know 2 doesn't go in, but 3 does. So we say that's 21. And 21 can be divided by 3 7 times, and 7 is a prime number. So our prime factors are 3 times 3 times 7. Now, we can check that our answer is correct by going to normal mode, which is just pressing your home button, typing in 63, pressing equals, and then saying second function and p fact. And that will give us exactly the same thing as we calculated here as well. Okay, so we were chatting about it last night, and we were saying that it's wonderful that the calculator is so clever, but it does make the students lazy. So some of the teachers do the long work and they say, once you've mastered this concept, I will show you a shortcut for it. And they get all excited and they really try and make sure that they understand the concept, because kids love shortcuts. I love shortcuts, so don't blame them. So it's a really nice way to encourage them to understand the concept of what they do. Now, I didn't put this into the notes, but I do want to show you. You also have a highest common factor and a lowest common multiple function. So GCD stands for greatest common divisor, which is basically a simile for highest common factor. So we can just say equals, and we can see that our highest common factor of 12 and 20 is 4. So this again builds on our prime factors, and it's a nice way to check that they're actually getting the correct answer. And then you can add as many numbers as you like to this as well, which is awesome. And so there we go. It's really nice to do it. And you can also do it with your lowest common multiple by saying second function and 3 for LCM, and like that as well. And we can keep adding any number, any set of numbers for as many as you like. You can just continue to do with the LCM as well. So really handy to have. Okay, awesome. Any questions there? We're all still good. Fantastic. Okay, so let's talk fractions and decimals. So again, we're going to use the W535. The S25 does not have fractions. It does obviously do decimals, but for fraction addition, it's really nice for the grade 7s to be able to check the answers as well. So there's 2 ways to put a fraction into your calculator. The first way is to press the fraction button first, type in your numerator, press down, type in your denominator, and then press your right arrow key to get out of your fraction. The second way to do it is to first press your numerator, then press your fraction button, and you'll see that now your numerator hops on top and it automatically expects you to fill in your denominator like that. So I've just moved it so you can see what it looks like nicely. And press equals, and we've got 1 and 1/45th, and this is where change comes in. So you can change your answer to an improper fraction as well as to a decimal. So if you want to check what a mixed number fraction is as an improper fraction, this is the way to do it. Now you can see that this is actually a recurring decimal, and there's a way to set up your calculator so that it shows you the recurring decimal format. So you can press setup and you can scroll down and choose 5 and press 1 for on. And now when we press change, you'll see as we cycle through that it gives us the recurring decimal format and again the normal decimal format as well. So it just adds that recurring decimal into your change selection of ways to write your number down. Now we can also add mixed number fractions, and there's also 2 ways to do that. Sorry. The first way is to type in your whole number first, press second function and then your fraction button, and that just glues your fraction onto your whole number. Type in your fraction, okay, and then your second way to do it is to first just press your fraction button, and then to press your left arrow key, type in your whole number, and then go back and type in your fraction as well. Okay, so both ways are correct. It's not like the other calculators that will multiply this whole number with your fraction. It will assume that it's a whole number that's attached to the fraction. So it's a 1.5 instead of 1 times a half. Okay, and then equals, and that's it. So it's a really, again, you can change it. It's a really quite intuitive and easy way to do your fractions. Okay, we've gone through recurring decimals, so this is the steps to turn it on. The only way that it will switch off is if you either turn it off yourself using that same sequence of steps, or if you reset the calculator as well. So, number patterns. There's lots that you can do in normal mode with the number pattern, and I'll show you on both the 535 and the S25. I have a video. So, in normal mode, just press on to clear that. All of your old stuff is still there, okay, even if you press on. So you can go back and check something that you did beforehand. So let's create a pattern. So we have 3 plus 5 is 8. And then we can say plus 5 again. And now you can just keep pressing equals, 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 equals. Okay, and that will give you your whole pattern over a certain number of positions. Okay, and you can do the same with multiplying. So you'll just keep doubling the previous answer as well. So what's really nice here is you can talk through why a pattern is doing what it's doing. So you can do the same thing here. I think we did a subtraction pattern here first. So 100 minus 5. And with this one, what's really nice is you can just keep pressing the equals button without having to re-minus again. So that's quite a nice handy one. Then here's a division, so dividing by 2 every time. So this is just a constant ratio pattern as well. Okay. So I've already demonstrated this. So it's a really nice way. What am I demonstrating here? Oh, this is multiplication as well. And you'll see here it multiplies by the first number, which was the 5 each time. Okay, then to follow on with your number patterns, you also have input and output values. So we're going to go back to our wonderful table mode because it's our favorite, and press 2. And then what you would do is you would create that input formula. Essentially, that's what it boils down to. So we would say 10x plus 2 and equals, 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 equals. And now we can see when I input 0, it gives me a 2. When I input a 1 into that function, it gives me a 12. So this is a really nice way to talk through functions and relationships and your inputs and your output values as well. All right, fantastic. Any questions? We're all still happy, still alive. Okay, fantastic. Then let's talk through probability. So another really nice thing that you've got on your 535 is the random function. And this is just so much fun for teaching probability with your students. So you can say second function and 7, and then you've got 4 different options. So the first one is random. I'm just going to run briefly through them with you quickly. So random does random decimals between 0 and 1 to 3 decimal places. It will show up as a fraction occasionally, so you can just change it. So what's nice here is you could use this to practice rounding off, or you could practice rounding off to 2 decimal places, or to 1 decimal place, and even to a whole number if you really wanted to, but your answer would be either 0 or 1. So you can see, just press equals and it will keep generating random numbers for you. Then you've also got a dice. So a dice is exactly like a normal die that you would have, and then it would just generate numbers between 1 and 6. You've also got a math coin. So that generates numbers either a 0 or a 1. So like heads or tails, same probability. And then you can just again press equals, 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 and you'll see it will just create lots of 0s and 1s. Now there's some fun games that I'll show you in a minute. The last one is really awesome because you can create a set of any set of random numbers. So let's say, for example, you want to create random numbers like you're throwing 2 dice and adding the 2 of them together. So the lowest sum that we could get would be 1 plus 1, which is 2. So we'll type in a 2. Then we press this X comma Y brackets button. And then the highest sum we could get is 6 plus 6. So we would say 12 and equals. And there you can see, so now we've got sums of the various dice together. And it's basically just creating a random throw of 2 dice for you. So this is either a 2 and a 1 and so on. The other nice thing is that you can also, I'm just going to backspace it, play the lottery with your students. So what you do is you ask them all to write down 6 numbers between 1 and 52 on a piece of paper. And then they switch the piece of paper with their neighbor. I don't know if we would be allowed to do that considering COVID, but anyway. And then you would just press your equals button and you would generate 6 different numbers out of the lottery basket. Okay, just like that. And then you can ask the students to circle the numbers that their friend sitting next to them has on the piece of paper. Now, most students are not going to get 5 numbers out of 6 or anywhere close to that. The highest we've had is 2 or 3. And I had one student who got 5, but I'm not sure it was a genuine 5 numbers. Sorry, Ray. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. You must tell me to slow down. So yeah, so that's the random integer. And again, you just keep pressing equals to get that random number for you. So there's lots of different things that you can do. So the first is, if all of your students have the calculator, you can ask them all to generate random numbers between 1 and 6, or even 1 and 10. It's up to you. Like if we were all throwing the dice, how many got 1, how many got 2, and you could write that down in the table. And then you could look at relative frequency and then have them do it again and do the tally table a couple of times, and then look at your relative frequency versus your theoretical probability. I think this is more of a grade 7 topic, but it is a fun one to do. If you are still teaching on Zoom, you could always do a poll. You could play Snap with the calculators. You can use it to test multiples. So you can create random numbers between 1 and 12, and whatever number they land on, they need to give you the first 10 multiples of that number. Or you could generate numbers between 1 and 150 and ask them to give you all the factors as a practice. So you could make it quite interactive, and although some kids don't like being put on the spot, but if it's something that you wanted to do just to get a little bit of blood flow going, or some excitement in the classroom, those are always fun games to do as well. Okay, awesome. So thank you very much for your time. I hope that you enjoyed today's session and that you found it useful. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe the channel and leave us a comment down below. It's always interesting to see how people feel about these workshops.